Okay, Monday, 21st of April, 2025. So, Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Money Monday, Bitcoin and all the other stuff, everything else. Bitcoin is a Newtonian network. Interesting. So, a lot of people would say instinctively it's a bit of a Metcalfe network. The more people that use the network, the more people there are, the more nodes, the more valuable it is. A good example of this is Facebook. The more people that use it, the more valuable it becomes, like Twitter, social media in general, really. But also Bitcoin can go one step further, and by looking at the first principles, the technology behind it, we can see that it is in fact also a Newtonian network. Michael Saylor talked about this in one of his speeches recently. I really forgot which one, really. I may endeavour to put a link in there somehow, but he talked about this recently. And that got me thinking because it was a bit of a throwaway comment. And I thought, that's an interesting statement. Tell me more. Let's look into that. So, a Bitcoin Newtonian network, stability meets growth. Now, there's an interesting feedback loop in Bitcoin with regards to the price, but with regards to, say, the hash rate, how secure it is. The higher the hash rate, the more users, the more building there is, more infrastructure there is on the network, including miners. The more miners there are, the higher the hash rate, the higher the price. Higher the price, the more users, and there's a vicious feedback loop. But we can go one step further. Bitcoin operates like a Newtonian network, governed by deterministic mathematical rules, but unlike classical physics, it also exhibits exponential feedback loop, what we talked about, a stable foundation for rapid growth. We just talked about that. But interesting, deterministic mathematical rules, meaning, as I said before in multiple videos, Bitcoin is fundamentally maths, physics, and computer science. Mathematics and the code, or the laws of maths. Physics with regards to real world energy, and computer science, code, language, and beyond, open source technology. So it's deterministic in the sense of we know the difficulty adjustment, the block reward, when the final block reward will be, when the next halving will be, all these other things, deterministic. It's all calculated, how long roughly each block is and beyond. Interesting to note, some people actually record when things happen, not in time as we know it, in the Georgian calendar, so to speak, but in block height. When this certain block happened, or something happened, and which block was the nearest time to it. An interesting little curiosity. And Bitcoin then is becoming the ultimate benchmark. If your investment or business isn't outperforming Bitcoin, you're losing. Bitcoin is becoming the new benchmark for financial performance. It outpaces traditional investments and companies that don't adopt it. Now, I did a video similar to this, alluding to this concept months ago now, about Bitcoin as the denominator. And also in a video on the 24th of November, the one where I met El Zonte, I actually mentioned something about this. I alluded to this. I expanded on this interesting maths, basically, that said that Bitcoin is the fastest horse in the race, and how some companies at the time, like MicroStrategy, were outpacing Bitcoin, were outperforming it. And I was speculating as to how that is, and my thought was, and this is really echoed in my mind since then, that because they're building on top of it, they're having the performance of Bitcoin and the excess. They're essentially using it like a jetpack in a way. They're running and then doing the jetpack, and they're going even faster. Because they're building on top of Bitcoin, they're leveraging and riding its performance, and then doing other things, their own inertia, going even faster. Makes sense. Some would even go as far as say Bitcoin has become the new hurdle rate, meaning if you're not beating this in its gains and its percentage, you're arguably and effectively wasting your time. Don't bother with any of that stuff if you're not using this, because the maths, the charts, the financial incentives, the financial rewards points to that if you can't outpace this chart here, look at every chart of any currency against Bitcoin, all goes to zero. If you can't outpace that, can't beat it, then it becomes this black hole of money. And I did a video about that as well, nearly a year ago as well. Bitcoin's a black hole of money. Everything goes to Bitcoin. Everything goes to zero against Bitcoin. And the power of Bitcoin's fixed supply, a deflationary revolution. Bitcoin is a deflationary asset with a fixed supply of 21 million Bitcoins. This makes it immune to inflationary pressures that erode the value of fiat currencies, a true store of value. Because of that fixed 21 million supply, and because it's deterministic, again, it's maths and code, that's fixed. It can't be changed. Very nice. So that means that everything else has to bend to that. This fixed mathematical thing can't bend to reality as how you want it to be. No, it has to be reality, so to speak, society, businesses bending to this. I go back to the analogy I just talked about, where building on top of it has to bend to this. Why? Because it's all pure maths. It's absolute scarcity, some would go as far as to say. Bitcoin is absolute scarcity. It's rare, it's scarce, without all the trappings of the physical world. Again, what's that? Mathematics. Notice these things. Maths, well, I'll use physics in a way. Physics, but in the sense of atoms and energy. And code, computer code, it's all digital, it's all ephemeral. We can't really touch it. The limitations of the world, well, physical stuff, gold, is exactly that. The limitations that are holding it back from being Bitcoin. And even Satoshi described Bitcoin. Imagine a grey metal, grey something that had all the properties of gold, but wasn't gold. But we're using maths instead to simulate those things, or actually to enforce those things, one step further, to enforce those things and put it onto a network, i.e. Newtonian network. The positive feedback loop. Bitcoin's exponential growth. Bitcoin's positive feedback loop means that rising adoption leads to increased price, which attracts more miners and users, making the network more secure, leading to even higher value. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle that keeps pushing Bitcoin's growth. There's a nice meme in the space. It's going up forever, Laura. I think I did a video about this as well. I may have. But it's going up forever, Laura. Now, what does that mean? What does all this mean? Rising adoption, increased positive feedback loop. Well, I just described it to you. Increased hash rate generally means higher price, or more users. More users, more infrastructure, more things being built. Lightning, Taproot, SegWit and beyond, including more miners. More miners there are means more hash rate, or higher hash rate. The higher the hash rate, the more secure it becomes, the more users, the higher price, etc., etc., etc. And then that meme of going up forever means that all of the world, one, has to fit into Bitcoin. Everything has to be repriced into Bitcoin. And two, because all these things there's no maximum number of shirts or chairs that can ever exist is unknown. Cars or whatever else is unknown. But the thing we are pricing everything in, the denominator, as I mentioned in the video earlier, the denominator is fixed. So that means that this has to be repriced. Meaning that over time, all these things go to zero against Bitcoin. Just how in the same way, and I came across this in a video by Matthew Cratter in his Bitcoin University, just how in the same way that seashells were long ago used as forms of money, now seashells, monetarily speaking, have gone to zero against Bitcoin. You can take all the seashells in the world and you can't buy a single Satoshi, because there's no monetary reason. To be honest, it's artistic, it's a collectible piece. But I can offer you one seashell for one sat. No, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, and beyond. It's gone to zero. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening mathematically with any currency. You look at, say, Polish zloty, British pound against Bitcoin. Every single chart is the same thing. The pattern, the trend is increasingly clear. Especially when you zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. And from our Forex days, one interesting rule of thumb is the trend is your friend. Again, going back to the benchmark thing. If you can't beat this, if you can't find something that's Bitcoin plus 5%, then you might as well just choose Bitcoin. But that's a whole other conversation. Opportunity cost. I did a video about this. The opportunity cost of not owning Bitcoin. The future of accounting in a Bitcoin economy. In a world where Bitcoin is the primary reserve asset, accounting standards will have to evolve. Interesting. From asset recognition to capital gains, Bitcoin will enforce accountants to rethink how we track, value, and tax assets. Now, I have no way how to talk about that, because that will not be a mainstream debate for 15 years from now. 30 years on at a delayed pace. 15 years at the minimum. But that's going to be something for future bookkeepers and future accountants to debate about. there'll be gap accounting, and there'll be in the future, there'll be something like, I don't know, BAP, because generally accepted accounting principles, I think it is. There'll be something in the future, there'll be like BAP, Bitcoin generally accepted accounting principles, something like that. Satoshi denominated accounting, for example. But that's a whole other conversation. Why? Because of the deterministic rules behind it, which will affect the balance sheets of people and places, and they'll have to come up with new accounting methods to calculate all these things. And just how in the future, and I saw an interesting debate about this, about naming conventions, we came up with Satoshis. In the future, people will be talking about using ways of categorizing numbers of Satoshis and whatever as per like health, using derived from Halfini, Fillionaire, for example, or whatever else. I want to do a video about this in the future, but there'll be new phrases and buzzwords that will come up to kind of categorize these things mentally. But that's for a future accountants to discuss. But interesting, it's happening. Why? Because that feedback loop. That feedback loop is exponential. A case in point. You look at the 200-day moving average of Bitcoin, and it just goes up and to the right. And people tend to be a bit iffy about TA, technical analysis, but technical analysis does something very, very good at, very, very good and very well, is to quantify human action. Put human decisions collectively into numbers and to charts, numbers and charts interchangeably. And that pattern, that 200-day moving average, only goes up and to the right, indicates human decision, human choice, praxology, human preference. And as it's increasing, that right there shows that this feedback loop is happening, because in that feedback loop, the higher the price goes, meaning the higher the price, more people are buying because of education and awareness, the higher that 200-day moving average goes, meaning the support, resistance and support, the price gets higher and higher constantly. And therefore we see things like the logarithmic chart, the rainbow chart, the red and the whites and the blues. Powerful stuff. It's human action, human decisions quantified. Primary reserve asset accounting standards. Why Bitcoin is the key to financial inclusion. Interesting phrase. Bitcoin provides borderless, decentralized access to financial systems. Again, by default. These are not bugs, these are features. It's the ultimate tool for financial inclusion, giving the unbanked the ability to save, transact, and build wealth, even in the most economically unstable regions. Now, this sentence right here is very interesting to unpack. Borderless, decentralized access. There's a nice meme in the space that talks about Bitcoin is money for enemies. Because its first principle of being open source code, anyone can access it. And there's a general ethos that talks about you can criticize, but you can't censor other people using it, other people using the technology and doing stuff with it. I did a video just under a year ago now, talking about Bitcoin ordinals. I forgot the name of the park, but I was in Dublin, Ireland, and I talked about Bitcoin ordinals. Talk about the future, really, of Bitcoin and the space, whatever else. And because it's decentralized, no central point of attack or failure, meaning it's open source by definition, kind of, anyone can use it. Anyone can use the technology to do whatever they want. That's powerful. And because it's international, there's no censorship on the network. It's borderless. Anyone can access the network. A wallet, Wi-Fi, very, very low standard barrier to entry technology and requirements. And that means, like it says here, the unbanked can access it. Because the principle with Bitcoin is, again, when in doubt, zoom out. If you're willing and able to hold on to it, well, actually, the longer you're willing and able to hold on to it, the better. Why? But we can look at it mathematically, again, deterministically, the 200-day moving average. If you look at your price, take a note of the price you bought it at in pounds, and over time the 200-day moving average will eclipse that, or pounds on dollars and euros, will eclipse that. What does that mean? That means that the network is doing its thing, and it rewards patience. It rewards long-term thinking. And there's this phrase, low time preference, high time preference. I always get this mixed up. High time preference? Because to me it's counterintuitive. It's long-term thinking, essentially. And I did a video about this as well, actually. He with the longest time horizon wins. on anything, because you're the one that's acting most strategically what you want to have in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, etc. These videos, for example, I'm recording them, so in 10, 20, 30 or so plus years, future generations can look at this and analyze and understand and learn. That's why I don't just do Bitcoin on this vlog as well, do a lot of other things. The end of centralized banking, how Bitcoin changes the financial system. On a Bitcoin standard, central banks lose their power to manipulate money supplies. This kind of new banking system, this creates a new kind of banking system where Bitcoin itself becomes the money, reducing the need for traditional financial institutions. Now, this is powerful and very interesting. I asked AI recently, why would AI choose Bitcoin? Because people talk about AI would choose Bitcoin in general. So I asked it directly, why would you? And it gave me a nice little list. And one of them it talked about was that it's because it doesn't change, i.e. the maths and the code, again, what is Bitcoin? Maths, code, and physics. Because it doesn't change, we can plan things out in the future. We know what the policy of Bitcoin is, a sense of the halvening and the block reward. We know what it will be in, say, 3 years, in the next halvening. We know what it will be, what the inflation rate, so to speak, through the mining would be in, say, 8 years, 12 years, 30 years. So we can do much more. It's a constant, really. It's the first universal constant, first financial constant. We can do much more planning into the future because we know what the policy will be. Again, deterministic. We know what it will be in, say, 16 years. That's powerful stuff. That means that there's no guesswork. Guesswork how? Where from? Banks, central banks. Interest rate. What's the interest rate today, tomorrow, next week, next month, a year, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now? Well, we did umming and ahhing, guessing and guesstimations. But with Bitcoin, we know exactly what the inflation rate will be 2,542 days from now. We know exactly what the inflation rate or the emissions rate will be in 3,162 days from now. We know what the block reward will be in 1,000 days. We know when the next difficulty adjustment is, roughly every 2,000 blocks or every 2 weeks or so. Things like that. We know roughly in 16 hours how many blocks will have passed. Things like that. 6 blocks every hour. Okay, very nice. Things like that. We know it's all deterministic, i.e. we can calculate it. How Bitcoin's blockchain provides transparent, trustless, and auditing. Bitcoin's public blockchain creates permanent, immutable records. It enables instant, transparent audits, eliminating the need for traditional financial intermediaries like auditors and banks. Transparency has never been more accessible. Now, this kind of a little bit more advanced because this kind of goes into the realms of having a node. Because people talk about how you can audit Bitcoin every 10 minutes. As a practical matter, I don't know how, but I've heard and understand that you can do that via a node. And it's a bit of code, I don't know exactly, but I'm sure there's an app or some real quick system to do it on the node itself. To do the audit. To audit and double check, to verify for yourself there's 21 million. Again, it's all code, it's all maths, it's all physics, it's all code, it's all right there, open source. So anyone can build a node system, a node operator, and join the network and review for themselves. And also, by having a node, you are not relying on somebody else's third-party software node to run your transactions. You can do it yourself. So in that very real way, in a very material way, you become your own bank by running a node. In a sense of there's even fewer ways for your transactions to be censored. Again, that goes in with the border listing we talked about earlier. Powerful stuff. Now, permanent immutable records. Yes, this is one thing the Bitcoin solved actually. It's a double spend problem. And this kind of goes into the Byzantine generals problem of how does everyone gain consensus? By being isolated, something akin to that. They have the same rules, the same technology, and they know what's going on all the time. Now, immutable records, meaning this kind of goes to the proof of work mechanism, meaning that transactions, the longer a transaction has been on the network, 6 minutes ago versus 6 days ago, the longer it's been on the network, the less likely, exponentially less likely, there is for a double spend, meaning a hack, meaning compromised network. How? Because the hash rate, remember that feedback loop again, the higher the hash rate goes, the exponentially more secure it becomes, the biggest supercomputer network in the world. So one transaction done 1 hour ago, is etched in history, or etched in blockchain history forever. In fact, at the start of this video, 20 minutes ago, more or less, there's been what, two different blocks, 10 minutes each. So a transaction made, 20 minutes ago is increasingly becoming more and more secure. In the next 40 minutes, that transaction is there forever. This kind of goes in with the 6 confirmations thing. Small transactions, I'm talking base layer on Bitcoin, not Lightning. Small transactions like buying coffee can be done with 1 confirmation. But big things, buying a house, for example, with Bitcoin, you'd want to wait 6 confirmations, 1 hour, for final settlement. And that itself right there is a fascinating topic to discuss with regards to banking and clearinghouses and T plus 1, 2, 3 days. That's fascinating. But hold on to the conversation. There's a difference between action accepted, confirmation, transaction accepted, and transaction confirmed. But that's a whole other interesting topic, a little bit financial, banking. The immutable records, meaning that the further back your transaction is on the network, the less likely it is to be unwound, i.e. hackers, things like that. Why? Because the hash rate is getting higher and higher, getting stronger. The network is getting stronger and stronger. History is fixed with Bitcoin. You can't change it. That's powerful. Meaning the records can't be tampered with. If they can't be tampered with, that means that they are fixed and it's deterministic again. The past is unchangeable. That's powerful. Again, think about the economic planning into the future. If the past is fixed and has been unchanged forever, that means that the records, the balance sheets, etc. don't change, meaning more security, more confirmation. And if you do a transaction on the network, you have more and more certainty that your confirmation will not be undone, reversed, hacked, compromised, you name it, because of the network, because of the first principles behind it. Again, maths, physics, and code. Why transitioning to a Bitcoin standard makes sense for future generations. As governments continue to inflate currencies, Bitcoin offers long-term economic stability. Again, that unchanging rules. To do economic planning, and as opposed to guesswork. What's the interest rate going to be like in 9 years from now? We don't know. What's the block reward going to be like in 9 years today? Oh, it's going to be this. By transitioning to a Bitcoin standard, we protect future generations from destructive effects of inflation, fostering savings and wealth building. Now that's interesting. That second part is interesting, but the first part is interesting as well. Well, it's all interesting by definition. Bitcoin offers long-term economic stability. Again, it's that fixed network. We know, deterministic, Newtonian network. We know what's going to happen. We know what's happening in the future. We know the maths. We know. We can do more economic planning well into the future because we know what the interest rate or the emission rate is going to be, the block reward, everything. When each the halvenings will be and beyond. Halvenings and difficulty adjustments. Now also, Bitcoin and environmental stability. So there's a lot to discuss actually and beyond. Bitcoin's energy-intensive mining process, often misunderstood, incentivizes renewable energy solutions, with miners increasingly tapping into standard energy from solar, wind, and hydroelectric power, driving green energy revolution. Now, what's very interesting about this whole thing is that every now and then in the world you'll find trapped energy sources. Energy, like methane released into the atmosphere, that can't be used for whatever reason. Too isolated, too unreliable, too uneconomical, whatever else. It's not worthwhile at the time. You put a Bitcoin miner on there, suddenly this energy that's monetarily speaking worthless becomes very valuable indeed, especially if it's renewable, especially if it's from a fountain. The more renewable it is, the better. And there was this interesting talk, I forgot what they're called now, Bitcoin Council, I think it is. There's an interesting talk and push to get 50% plus of the mining network on renewable energy. And I think it's more than that now, but Bitcoin Council, I think it's called, yes. So let's have a quick look at a few other things. So Bitcoin supply is fixed and deflationary. Security is ensured for proof of work and hash rate. Bitcoin's monetary policy is predictable and transparent. The blockchain is immutable and public. Bitcoin's positive feedback loop drives value and adoption. Decentralization eliminates single point of failure. Transparency enforces accountability. Bitcoin enables permissionless transactions. Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. Proof of work replaces trust with cryptographic verification. These concepts and philosophical underpins, all these philosophical concepts underpin Bitcoin, the immutable principles that define how Bitcoin operates and how it interacts with the world. All of these are first principle. All of these are based in maths, energy, physics, atoms, and computer science, code. Fixed supply, proof of work, predictable, transparent, immutable and public, feedback loop, value in adoption, decentralization, transparency, permissionless, hedge, and cryptographic verification. There's one more interesting ethos and meme in this space as well that talks about trust, don't verify, don't trust. No, trust but verify. You make a statement. Oh, interesting. Okay, tell me more. Where's the evidence as well? Where's the concept? Where's the proof? And this kind of goes into the video I did a few weeks ago now about a priori and post priori knowledge and information. But these kind of statements, Newtonian network, well, the maths behind it, the fixed supply deflationary, because over time the block reward goes down and down, meaning the emission, the inflation rate, so to speak, of Bitcoin goes down and down. Proof of work and hash rate, the technology behind it, predictable and transparent. We can predict things into the future. It's all mathematics. Immutable record, again, talking about the double spend problem, solved. And public, I mean, anyone can, it's open source. You could remember, you can criticize, but you can't censor. Anyone can join the network and be a node, run a node. Positive feedback loop, the 200-day moving average. We see that embodied in the 200-day moving average. Decentralization, yes, because there's an interesting trilemma in Bitcoin, or in the crypto space, so to speak, or that kind of technology space. Security, scalability, and centralization, or decentralization. You can have two, but not three, so to speak. And Bitcoin chose security and decentralization above all, which meant that scalability was hard, and that's why we have things like Lightning. But because it's decentralization above all, meaning there's no one central point of no one central point of attack, hackers or office building being raided, or failure, things breaking down, error rates, things like that, for the whole thing to come crashing. This is why that Satoshi is vanished. That's a feature, not a bug. It's a feature that he disappeared. Otherwise, it would be compromised into the network in a sense of this one particular person here or there or wherever gets arrested, and the whole thing comes crashing down. And you look at no CEO, no office, no balance sheet, no earnings risk, no third party, no this, no this, no that, no this, no this, no this, you name it. That's why there's no real risk in Bitcoin. There's only really volatility, so to speak, keeping it very broad. But then take a step back, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. Long-term horizon. Where do all the charts go? Up into the where into the up. Short-term is a little irrelevant, really. It depends on your long-term horizon. But that's another conversation. Transparency and accountability. Again, your nodes can verify the 21 million and the confirmations. Permissionless transactions, yes. There's no censorship built into Bitcoin. You do a transaction, six confirmations later, an hour later, it's etched there forever. It can't be undone. Hedge against inflation, yeah, because it's a rarer, harder form of money than whatever else there is in the world, than this pound coin. It's rarer, it's harder to make, it's harder to come into existence, scarce. Again, Bitcoin is absolute scarcity. And proof of work replaces trust with cryptographic verification, meaning you have to push atoms in the mining process. You have to push atoms, energy, to secure the network and to confirm the transactions. Meaning you have to do something in life, energy, to make Bitcoin work and function. It's not proof of stake, which is akin to the banking system in a way, akin to just drawing interest and almost akin to just success begets success, in a very indirect way, in a very broad way of speaking. But to do something on the network, or to acquire Bitcoin, you either earn it, trade it with fiat or you mine it. That's it. Level playing field. Powerful, powerful stuff. So yes, so Bitcoin is becoming increasingly clear. It's a Newtonian network, deterministic laws, like clockwork. Powerful, powerful stuff. And I urge you to look into the first principles of Bitcoin. ChatGPT, give me the 10 first principles of Bitcoin. That. Because fundamentally, you can't escape first principles. Powerful, powerful stuff. But otherwise, Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Subscribe for more, and you will see me tomorrow.